Well, thank you everybody for joining us in another of these talks, interviewing some of the speakers about Barbados SEO. Today we've got Greg Gifford with us. Greg is the CEO of Search Lab Agency, and he has more than 20 years of experience on online marketing and web design. Like, well, most of the speakers at the conference are people that have been in the industry since like forever. Your talk's going to be on the definitive guide to local SEO, but
Yep.
how are you feeling about joining us at Barbados SEO, Greg?
Oh, I'm really excited. I wanted to come last year, and they actually asked me to come last year, but I was already committed to speak at another event, so I couldn't do it. So as soon as they had the dates set down, they reached out and were like, hey, you got to come this year. Heck yeah, I'm there. I'm excited. My wife's very excited too. She likes to join me on some of the cooler destinations of all the conferences that I speak at. So we're both very excited to come down.
I think Barbados is like one of the pretty cool ones out there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Let's go back to the beginning. I was mentioning that you have more than 20 years of experience in the industry. How did you get started in SEO?
So I actually got started because I was a Flash website designer way back in the day when Flash first came out. So I had my own website design agency, and Flash came out. I started messing with Flash, and because I was a film major in college, Flash at the time was less coding and more just animation. And so the interface kind of in my brain clicked the same way as editing film. So I created really crazy animations where everyone else was trying to just make a regular website but make it in Flash. I was like, oh, let's like have all kinds of crazy stuff move around. So then we figured out really quickly that the content in those sites wasn't showing up in Google. So we started figuring out how to get it to show up in Google. And that was really my first kind of introduction to SEO. And we did a lot of things to get the content to show up that I found out later were really, really black hat evil things. But hey, it worked. And so that's kind of how I fell in. And then that company didn't end up working out well because of some things with the partners that I had. So I left and got a job as a Flash designer at a company that did websites for car dealers. And then pretty quickly they wanted to start selling SEO. And because I knew a lot about trying to get stuff to show up in Google, I ended up starting that department for them and then never looked back. And I've been officially doing SEO ever since.
Like most of the people that I've interviewed so far, because you've been so long in the industry and you've been in it since before there was any sort of like formal training for it. Which are the things you wish you would have known when you started, or you're happy to just like have learned on the way?
Back then it was so much easier to just do some things and get really quick results. So I don't feel like there's anything that I wish I'd have known that we didn't figure out pretty quickly ourselves. I do wish that I really looked into what legitimate SEO was a little bit sooner, because I think I could have done some pretty amazing things. But, falling into it from the direction of, hey, I don't have these websites showing up in Google, what do I do? And figuring out myself, I think gave me a really good foundation for success moving forward, because that's one of the things that I talk a lot about when I give more of a high level or a process oriented talk at a conference. Is I always tell people you need to learn the why behind what you do and not just the how it works, because so many people nowadays are just chasing the algorithm and they're doing what they're hearing on podcasts or reading online or hearing at a conference. And they're just doing it because they were told this is what you need to do for SEO, but they haven't figured it out for themselves. And I feel like those of us that have been in it for a long time that did go through the, hey, figure this out yourself phase of their career seem to have a little bit more longevity and a little bit more success in the industry because you understand the why behind everything that you're doing.
Do you think there's maybe like a bit too much noise in the industry these days?
Not just these days, but forever. There's been too much noise for a long time. There's so much information out there about any topic, but we're talking about digital marketing and SEO specifically. There's so much information out there. How is someone that isn't an expert supposed to know which to read? Because you might read one blog post or watch a video or listen to a podcast that says, here's the way to do it, don't do it this other way. And then 5 minutes later, you'll have something that says, no, this other way is the way to do it, don't pay attention to this other way. And you start getting conflicting information and going back and forth, and you're not really sure what works. And heck, there's stuff out there that I wrote 10 plus years ago on search engine land that now, if someone was to stumble across that, it would be telling them incorrect stuff. So I don't think it's realistic that people would go back and remove all of the outdated content, but there's a lot of outdated content out there and stuff that was never correct in the first place. So I think that makes it a lot harder for people that are getting into SEO nowadays, because what do you really trust?
Yeah. So what would you think was the biggest challenge back then, and what's the biggest challenge now in the industry?
Oh, I mean, gosh, back then, I don't think there was that much of a challenge. It was pretty easy to do some simple tactical things and have massive differences happen in search results pretty quickly. I think today it's probably better than it was back then, because today the algorithm has evolved so much. Most of the time, if you're ranking higher, you deserve to rank higher because you're a better answer to the query. Whereas back in the day, you could get anything to show up number one, whether it was really what people were looking for or not. So I think that side of it is a little bit better for the consumers. It makes it harder for those of us doing marketing, but it also means we kind of got away from marketing for a while there, where you had traditional marketing and then we had the internet and SEO came out and everybody was like, oh, let's forget how to really sell and how to really market and just do some little tricky things to get these sites to show up. And now the algorithm has evolved over the years, and it's come back to everybody actually needs to do real marketing again. And I kind of like that side, because for a while there, it was a little bit more on the hacky side of let's just do some things to get these sites to show up. And then because they show up, they'll convert. But now you really have to do good marketing again, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, I guess like you have to put the user or the reader or the person who's browsing first.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. If you could give one tip to anyone wanting to get into the industry, what would you tell them? Like,
ooh, that's a tough one. And my usual go-to, I already talked about earlier, but usually when people ask me this, it's what I mentioned a few minutes back of test things yourself and figure out the why. Like, I think that is the biggest thing that people just getting into the industry lack, is they don't go out and test things for themselves and learn by doing. They just learn by following the checklist that they've been told to follow. And checklist SEO is only going to get you so far, because as soon as you come up against anything that is outside the norm, you're not going to know what to do. So learn the why and then find the right people to follow to help you sift through all of that noise that's online. And, it used to be, hey, go follow people on Twitter, but Twitter's kind of maybe dying now, and there's stuff all over the place. But you can typically kind of find the right people to follow on whatever platforms they might be on. Usually to people that are newer in the industry, I suggest following people that do speak at events like this, because, especially at conferences that invite the speakers and it's not something that people pitch for, you can pretty much assume that those people know their stuff. They wouldn't be invited to speak. And even when it's a conference that people have to pitch to speak at, they're still only going to get chosen if they're good at what they do. And you can tell that when people speak at multiple conferences, it probably means that they're either just entertaining on stage and people like them, or more likely it means they have good information to share. And then that's a great way to kind of jumpstart your knowledge level, is to follow the right people and learn the right things and not get confused by all the noise.
Talking about people to follow, like, who are the people that you think, like, that are must follows?
Well, I mean, it depends on what your area is.
Okay.
If we're talking SEO,
local SEO. Let's go for
in
that
local
one.
SEO, I mean, obviously me, but Joy Hawkins is pretty much everyone's agreed de facto queen of local SEO. There's a lot of people on the Sterling Sky team there that she's put together that are awesome. Darren Shaw runs the local search ranking factor study now at White Spark, so he's great. Claire Carlisle has her own thing and then also works with Bright Local. She does a lot of amazing things. Blake Denman at Rickety Roo is awesome. Nikki Mosier is great. I mean, there's a ton of people out there, but again, it kind of comes back to look at the people that are speaking at these conferences, but then it's not always the conference speakers. Like Blake Denman's ridiculously smart, and he doesn't speak at a ton of conferences. So sometimes he's a little bit more under the radar, which makes it that much better when you follow him and see those really smart insights. Noah's gone to work. Noah Lerner's gone to work at Sterling Sky now, and that's kind of put him more in a local SEO realm. And that guy's just, I mean, first time I met him, it blew my mind how smart that guy is. So yeah, I mean, there's just a good little crew. And the easiest way to see if you're in local SEO who you should follow is go to the annual local search ranking factor study that White Spark does. And I think the count was 44 people this year, but it's around 40-ish people that participate in this survey every year. And if you go just look up local search ranking factors, White Spark always ranks #1. You can click over to the post where he explains it all. And in that post, he lists out the 40-ish people that participated in the study. Pay attention to all those people.
That's your list for that. We've been talking about a little bit about like local SEO, and your talk at Barbados SEO is going to be about local SEO. What makes it so interesting for you?
So for me, the kind of interesting bit, especially over the years, is that it's a different algorithm. It's not regular SEO. So signals are weighted differently, and local SEO includes signals that traditional SEO doesn't include. So in some cases, I think it's actually more complex than traditional SEO. And for years, local SEO was kind of this redheaded stepchild. You'd have a multi-day conference with multiple tracks. There'd be one session about local. And now people have realized, geez, most people actually need to be doing local SEO. So now you'll have an entire day with an entire track all about local SEO. And so for me, you're not on these massive scale websites with hundreds of thousands or millions of pages. You're on a small scale website, and it's not like, you're working with this massive e-commerce company and you increase conversions by 0.5% and make them another $1 million. And you're like, woohoo, we win. It's more like, here's this, small business, family-owned business, where when you can get them to show up better in Google and they get a couple of more conversions and a couple of more sales, puts their kids through college. It lets them retire a few years earlier. You can see the effect that you have on that business and the business owners and managers' lives, as opposed to it's just this big amorphous entity that you're helping make more money. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because like we all do marketing because we want to help businesses succeed, but I just kind of like the smaller, more intimate scale when it comes to local SEO.
And now, like, looking back at your career, because you've been working in it for quite some time, like what would you say is like one of your biggest career achievements, like one company or like someone that you helped like rank? If you can't name them, just don't name them, but just like provide like a generic thing.
Man, that's a tough one. There've been so many over the years. I do remember one guy though, where I did a training course at Brighton SEO, because a lot of the conferences that I do internationally, I'll do like an all-day training course for local SEO, either the day before or the day after. And I had done a training course in Brighton SEO like, 8, 9, 10 years ago. And 3 or 4 years later, this guy came up to me just at the general conference and was like, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but I worked at a veterinarian's office and I did your training class years ago. And the stuff that I learned in that class helped our business grow. And he just started telling me all the amazing things that they were able to accomplish because they grew so much, just because they did some of the things that I talked about doing in my training class. And I thought that was pretty stinking awesome. And then, our own clients at Search Lab, we've had lots of clients that, I had about a 12-year section of my career where I worked at agencies that worked exclusively with car dealers. So I'm pretty well known in the automotive arena, and we have a lot of car dealer clients at Search Lab just because of that. And, we've got guys that started with us just before COVID hit in 2020. And then not only was it the change in consumer behavior, but then you had the whole chip shortage. So a lot of car dealers didn't have inventory to sell. So everyone's traffic just tanked and nobody was selling cars. And we've got several dealerships that you almost didn't know that COVID happened at all. And they just had crazy success. And like one guy was averaging about 9,000 organic visits a month in 2019. And what, 3-4 years later now, I guess it's 4 years later. I stink at math. Yeah,
4.
whatever it is.
Time
4
flies.
years later. Yeah. COVID brain. But 4 years later, he's consistently at like 75 to 90,000 a month, coming from 9,000 a month. So being able to see like that sort of massive turnaround on people is just really cool.
Yeah, like for someone who's been like in the industry for like over 2 decades, what are the best and the worst things about the industry?
Oh, geez. I mean, the best thing is that I think in this industry, everyone tends to be incredibly open and helpful, where, we're all competitors and we're all speaking at conferences, but we all help each other. I've talked to direct competitors and gotten help on issues before, and everybody's just really helpful and very endearing. My best friends in the world are people that I've met through this industry. But I think one of the worst things about the industry can also sometimes be the people. There's a lot of trolls, I guess we should call it, out there that like to kind of sow discord and just be generally grumpy people and try to make other people unhappy, and they mess with you on social or talk smack about you online or whatever. They attack other people.
Yep.
I think that part's really unfortunate. There's a lot of, high school type drama in the SEO realm, which I think we would all be much happier if we just let all that go and went back to just being nice, happy people.
I think like the high school drama is not something exclusive to the SEO industry. I think it happens like in most
happens
industries.
everywhere.
Yeah. And if you had to pick one thing to do, like in SEO, what's your favorite thing to do in your day-to-day?
Wow. For me, now that I'm in more of an operations role, I actually enjoy the procedural side of SEO, of like figuring out what's the process and how can we be the most efficient and the most effective in the least amount of time. And I'm not saying that of like, hey, we're trying to screw people over, but figuring out, hey, what time do we actually need to spend to get reliable results? And how can we be more efficient with that time? Because if a client is paying us X amount of dollars, I would rather figure out how to be the best steward of that money and get the best results I can for that money, which means I want to try to figure out how I can do more work for that money to get more results without losing profitability, and kind of juggling that in the air of, how do I make this work? How do we make this more efficient? Here's a really cool idea. How can we insert this into our current system? The process side of things is what I really, really enjoy the most.
Do you think like that, when the wide range of tools that we have these days and AI, is that helping improve processes and like make them more effective?
I think there's the potential for that to help, but I think people do get a bit overwhelmed because you come in and now you've got 15 or 16 different tools, and some of them do the same things as others, but they do it to varying degrees of success. And people tend to get really familiar with one tool and just stick with that tool, even though there may be a better tool in their tool belt that they could be using for that. So I do think because there's kind of this scattershot of all these different things that you can use, I think sometimes it's less efficient because of that. But I think the people that take the time to learn all of the tools and the strengths and weaknesses of each of those tools, that can then know, okay, I need to accomplish X, and the best tool for that, or the best process for that, is this over here. I think those are the people that are really more successful in the long run.
There's been a lot of talk recently about, AI, and I mean, I've been hearing that SEO is dead since like forever.
Right.
Do you think how do you think AI is going to impact the industry, or is already impacting it?
I mean, it's already impacting it in that all you can read about on Twitter now is different AI tools or what people think about this. And they've got the labs thing going where you can see the generative search experience and everybody's like, have you figured it out? What are you doing for this? And it's like, slow your roll, people. This is a beta test. This isn't out to the public yet. And if you look, you can go from like what you're seeing today to what you see tomorrow to what you see on Friday. It could be vastly different because they're changing so much on the fly. I think it's a bit of a red herring at this point. I think a lot of people are worried about something that will it affect our jobs at some point? Sure. But I think the people that are really worried are the people that are more on the hacky side that don't understand the why behind what they do. Because if you don't understand the why and you're just following a checklist, well, then, yeah, you could probably get replaced by machine learning in some form or another. But if you're doing real marketing and really truly trying to provide the best solution to the problems that potential customers have, AI is not going to be able to solve that. At least, I mean,
Not now.
who knows how quickly it's going to get to that point. But for right now, sure, AI can write a bunch of crappy content, but AI can't be the source of the strategy behind that content and what you need to do. And it doesn't have the real world expertise of knowing, here's how human customers are going to search for this. Here's the way I need to create this content to work, to convert. AI is not there yet. You still have to do real marketing. You're still going to have a human behind it. Now, what your actual role is and what your day-to-day is will probably change. There will probably be some sort of AI assistant or tool that you'll use to assist in what you do. But it's kind of if you look at paid search, you've had all kinds of tools that were machine learning enabled that would assist you, and you could click the button and let the tool completely run all of your paid search campaigns on full automation and still get decent results. But that's nowhere near close to the results you get if you use that tool as an assistant and have a real human coming in and looking at what's going on and making real human decisions on negative keywords and budgets and things like that. That's how SEO is going to work as well. You could let it run on full automation and let just machine learning do everything for you. You're not going to get great results, but it could work. But if you're doing real marketing right now, you probably don't have a lot to worry about. You're still going to have a job.
Yeah. What would you say are the most important skills for anyone wanting to work in marketing? It would be something like adaptability, like having a curious mind.
Yeah, for sure. And you've got to have the right thought process of, so many people in marketing get their marketing blinders on and they're only thinking marketing, and they don't think about what the actual customer experience is.
Yeah.
And if you really want to be successful in marketing, you've got to think about that customer experience and take those blinders off and think about what it's like to come to that website or go through that buyer funnel, that buyer journey for the first time ever, knowing nothing about it. And most marketers have that kind of innate curiosity, and you want to figure out how stuff works and what can you tweak to get better results here. And if you change the color of this button, are you going to get a couple of more clicks? And those are the people that have that kind of base curiosity that I think are going to be okay. And they're just going to figure out different ways to approach the problem once AI really becomes a part of the mix.
Yeah. So we're talking about like the fact that your talk it's called The Definitive Guide to Local SEO. What can people expect from it?
They can expect to get the definitive guide to local SEO. Thank you. I am done. No.
I mean, it's a very self-explanatory title.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to cover all of the things that influence visibility in local searches. So the content on your site, how that content is optimized. And that's a different take on optimization than traditional. I'm going to talk about building inbound links to the site, and that's a different take than traditional as well. So I'll talk about the different strategies there. I'm going to talk a little bit about citations, even though they're not as important as they used to be. I'm going to talk a lot about reviews and a lot about Google Business Profiles. So it literally is, I mean, it's not maybe the definitive playbook because it's not like I've got all day to do the talk, but it's definitely a high level look at here's how optimizing for Google's local algorithm is different than doing traditional SEO. And here are the things that are different. And here's some tactics and strategies that you can use to improve your digital marketing strategies when you're working with a business that has results that are served by that local algorithm.
And what are you expecting from Barbados SEO? Have you spoken to any of the people who presented last year? Have they given you like any insights?
I mean, I'm friends with everybody that spoke there last year, and I heard great things. So I'm very excited to get down there. I'm very excited to get on the beach and get some sun when it's, not probably the best weather in Texas. And mainly I'm just excited to come down to a cool event and hang out with, all the people speaking this year are all really good friends as well. So I'm excited for us to all get together down there on the island and have a good time.
I'm fully conscious. I mean, I think everybody working at Barbados SEO were fully conscious that, Barbados is not around the corner. It's a flight and it involves like a certain expense. How would you convince someone to take a chance and just get a flight, come to Barbados to learn about SEO?
Let me look and see how, do a little quick Dallas to Barbados flight. I don't think they're that expensive. Yeah, I mean, it's like $1,000 to get there. So not that bad. I mean, looking right here, if I'm going, and I just randomly pulled up August, so flying from Dallas to Barbados in August on American Airlines is $872. I mean, that's less than what it costs to go over to conferences in Europe. Those are $2,000 tickets, at least lately. And I mean, looking at a lot of people go to MozCon in Seattle, that's about what I had to spend on a flight to Seattle this year. And Seattle's not on a gorgeous beach, and Seattle has really ridiculously expensive hotel rooms, and the conference is probably a significantly more expensive plane ticket. So when you start to look at, sure, it's a longer flight, and sure, maybe it's a little bit more expensive, but you start stacking it up versus other conferences, maybe it ends up being a lot cheaper. So one of the things that we've done this year is we've given our team leads and managers budget to attend conferences because we want them to be able to attend conferences themselves and learn things. And a lot of our team leads have skewed in one direction for conferences. And I just did Brighton SEO in, I think, April. Yeah. And one of our team leads went over to Brighton SEO, and he was flying from Chicago. And while it was a longer flight, he's going to probably spend anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 less doing the UK for a week for a conference than doing MozCon for a week, or going to, PubCon Vegas if they had PubCon Vegas, because Vegas is traditionally pretty expensive to stay in too. So I think people that are considering coming down to Barbados, obviously coming to Barbados is the big draw there, but looking at a conference, I mean, look at the speaker lineup. It's an insane lineup of speakers, and the overall cost that you're spending is probably about what you'd spend to hit a conference in the US, or if you're in Europe, obviously it's a little bit further to come, but it's about the same as what you'd be spending, but you get to go to Barbados. Why would you not go to that? Come on.
And you can get there before the conference or stay afterwards and make a holiday out of it.
For sure. I mean, if you're there anyway, why not stick around for a couple of days?
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Greg, for the chat. It's been a lot of fun.
Happy to chat anytime.